What up, Lightfighters? We're in the backyard today, war nerding up here. I want to talk to you guys today about communications gear and some communications systems. I've said it before, I'll say it again, guys. Battles are won well before they are initiated in the field. You guys, the planning phase is critical to mission success. So planning phases are something you guys can always be going through. And today we're talking about communications. Specifically encrypted communications. All right, this wasn't clickbait. We're going to talk about encryption. A lot of time and money has been spent by the military on encryption and encrypted radio systems, and then they spent a lot of time and money not letting us civilians have them, unfortunately. So today I'm going to talk to you about a really cool system of encryption that's available to anyone, okay? And this is military level encryption, believe it or not. And it doesn't actually involve any of this equipment right here. What it really only involves, and all you need to do it, is a pad and paper, a pen, a radio, and a friend to talk to. So I'm going to show you guys what's called by the military an SOI, or Signal Operating Instructions, or it's also been called a CEO&I, or I've got to cheat, counter encrypting operations and instructions, okay? I think it was only called CEO&I for a brief stint in the military. And I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to who I learned this from, guys. The One Shepherd Institute of Leadership is what it's called now, Dr. Christopher Larson. He wrote a book, Lightfighter Tactics for Small Teams. And this is actually found in this book that was released a very long time ago. If you can find you a copy, this is good stuff for light infantry guys. It's light reading, and it's a lot of fun, so I do encourage you to grab a copy. But this CEO&I, or SOI, was not originally found in there, but Dr. Larson ripped it off from the military and then sold it back to him. So here's my copy of my SOI. And guys, we will, I'll show this in greater detail here on the thing, and I'll get a file online so I can share this with everybody. But basically what this is, guys, is this is a code book, okay? This is a code book that is in effect from a certain time period, and it's only issued to a certain amount of people, and that's how you maintain its security. So on this code book, it's organized. I've got mine color-coded, just kind of basically off of what generally we're saying. So at the top left, we've got stations and a call sign, so a higher command, and then I've got a generic squad tree here. First platoon is whiskey actual. You could talk to the RTO which by asking for a whiskey. Squad 1 would be whiskey 1. Squad 1, fire team 1, whiskey 1-1. Fire team 2, whiskey 1-2. You go to the first platoon, squad 2, whiskey 2. So that's how that works. I believe I just ripped that off from the United States Army. I think that's how they do that. You guys can use whatever call signs you want. Be a Knight Rider, be Dragon. That's cool. It doesn't matter, guys. It's your radios, and this is America. So as long as you're not being explicit on the radio, you can say what you need to. On the top right here, guys, we got orders and statuses. These are basically just some generic things like moving, halted, continue. Talks about, down the lower, it's got a word for meter, mile, hour, and day. Orders like attack, defend, withdraw, and destroy. Those are all up there. I'm going down towards the middle. We've got situation report. Obviously, we've got our color codes for green, yellow, red, and black for our LACE and salute reports, and they're right below it. We also got some coding for enemies, friendlies, local law, EPWs. I'm going to go ahead and make a note, guys, at any time. You guys can change any of these on this for what your mission is driven, guys. If you're not concerned about talking about local law enforcement on the radio, or you happen to be local law enforcement, more power to you. You might not need that encoded. Hell, if you're local law, maybe your radios are already encrypted. They should be. Some people don't have as much money. Towards the middle, guys, we're talking about resources. The resources you're going to need in the field. Did I put casualties on here twice? I very well might have. I got to make sure. That's one thing you're doing when you're making this, guys, is you want to make sure you don't use the same words twice, the same code words twice, as well as don't have the same thing on here 2 times, because it can cause confusion. I've been on a couple exercises where you'll find that a word is on here twice and it gets confusing. Or if you've got multiple SOIs in effect over different days or different time periods, things can get confusing. So finally, guys, we're talking about positioning here in the yellow column relative to something. We also got clockwise, counterclockwise. Just gives you an ability to talk about as much as possible. And then finally, in the lower right, more specific locations, we've got an in, at, on, a zone or area, all the way down to our military-specific objectives, rally points, assembly areas, FLOT, FIBUs, LOAs, TRPs, danger areas. There's some blanks on there again. You fill this in as you need it, as well as just when you do fill it in as you need it, make sure you write it down on all the copies. Everybody who's who's getting a copy of this SOI, you need to write it down on each one or print a new copy, because you want all the SOIs to be the same. So moving down on this table here, you'll see what's called this authentication table. This is so you can make sure who you're talking to on the radio is actually who you believe them to be. So say I'm talking to my buddy TJ, and I say, hey TJ, this is Brock. And he says, go ahead, Brock. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like TJ. What do I do? Well, I'd ask him to authenticate. I say, hey TJ, go ahead and authenticate for me. Four. I don't know how you're supposed to say that on the radio. 4. I'm gonna say 4. And he would look down. Our authentication table is Blackthorn. Now this authentication word, it can be just a jumble of letters, but it's also easier if it's a 10-letter word that does not have a letter repeating twice, okay? And that is so you can remember it. I know mine is Blackthorn, so, and I'm now authenticating 4. So BLACK, starts at 0. I should probably move 0 to the end so I don't get confused about that, and I'm gonna do that. All right, so ideally you can spell the word and you know how to authenticate, but I put 0 up front, so we're gonna put 0 at the end after 9. So B would be 1, and then when I would authenticate, it would be 4, would be K. Now, if I look at here, I counted inappropriately, so we'll figure that out. All right, and finally, towards the bottom here, guys, just some generic affirmative, negative, unknown. We've got just the worldwide flash 3 times over the radio. It's pretty much accepted as there's an emergency. That's been stop your traffic, let me speak. We got interrogative, that means we're gonna ask a question. And we've got 2 good ones down here that are good to have on any SOI. This means alternate your frequency. Our frequency's been compromised, move to the alternate frequency, which sometimes you can write on these. And then alternate SOI. So I mean switch SOI, this one's been burned. Light it on fire, eat it, do whatever you do with it, just get rid of it, and we're switching to the next one, okay? So ideally, you didn't get your whole stack of SOIs, so the whole FTX burned. You just had 1 copy on you, and the rest of them were, you know, hidden in the dirt, just hidden in a hole. You hid them somewhere. Finally, in the very end, guys, these are challenge password, running password, number combination. These are things you guys use when you're in the field with your team. Everyone knows, like, the World War II challenge and flash word, flash and thunder. That's what this is, guys. So if you get into that vocal recognition range, that close recognition range, and you need to challenge somebody, you can yell into the woods, flash, and hopefully you hear thunder back and you know that it's friendly or somebody who has your SOI. Also in here, guys, the running password. This one's only to be used kind of in that emergency, like I've been burned and I'm getting chased and they're shooting at me and I'm running back to you. So I'll come running back screaming our running password. And again, choose a word that's easy to remember. Budweiser is on here, or just free beer. If anybody comes screaming free beer in the woods, something's wrong. So, so we're gonna help this guy because we know that's our code. I've heard the word Titanic used by some Marines before. So just have a word that's your running password that if anybody is in a panic and anybody needs to come running back to a friendly, they can scream this, and if you hear this running password, you know, oh shit, pay attention, look for my IFF, don't shoot friendlies, obviously, be smart. Again, if you go using this running password even once, if anybody goes screaming Titanic in the woods, you're gonna find a new one. New running password time. The enemies might have heard that, okay? And then if you just hear somebody randomly screaming Titanic, or you're chasing someone and you hear them yell Titanic, that word might be important. So we might be probing by fire and screaming Titanic later in the middle of the night. Either way. Finally, the number combination. I don't exactly understand when you're supposed to use the number combination over challenge and password. Something about being forward of friendly lines, behind an enemy line. I don't know, but it's an alternative, guys. And this is basically another challenge and password that is basically you challenge with a number and then they reply with a second number that adds up to your number combination. So our number combination is 9. If I was to challenge, I would say stop, 5, and then the proper reply would be 4. And I'd say, okay, this is me, that's you, we're coming in. Now, I've always heard to use odd numbers because then you can't just divide them in half, because if you choose 8, then people say 4. And then if you choose 4 or yell 4 to somebody, they're likely just to say 4. And then they're like, well, that happens to be the right answer. So there's all this that goes into choosing the right number combination, but all this ends up doing is making everybody choose 5, 7, or 9. So choose your own number combination, guys, and just use it. Be smart about your challenges and passwords, and when they're burned, burn them and get a new SOI. So guys, I'm moving inside. We're gonna go look at we're gonna go inside in the office where it's a little less windy, and we're gonna look at this in a little bit more detail, and we're gonna talk about it in a little bit more detail. Thanks for hanging out with me in the woods. Hey, it's my backyard.
All right, welcome back, Lightfighters. I am in the office in front of my computer with a nice cup of coffee and a clipboard, which means only one thing: we are LARPing as a lieutenant colonel now. But for real, what I'm in here to do is to have a conversation with my buddy TJ using this SOI CEO&I, to show you a little bit how it's used. So I'm excited to do that. All you need, again, is some sort of communications. You could shout if you want, but a radio. We're actually going to be using a signal and using voice comms over that. It'll just be a good, best way to edit. So I'm going to be doing some of my finest video editing and trying to put my SOI on the screen as I talk through it and use it, and we'll see what I can do. I'll do my best for you. So first thing is first is you want to make sure that your buddy has a copy of the SOI before you go starting to communicate with it. So oftentimes it's also good to make sure they've got a couple copies of different SOIs and then understand how to use them, of course. So obviously this video right here is going to kind of show you the basics of how to use one. You've got to determine with your group of friends or your team how you're going to implement these, whether they be labeled via time of day or time of operation. So like the first 12 hours of the operation will be on this SOI, the second 12 hours will be in this one. Or just know that on every at midnight on every odd numbered day, the first and the third at midnight, we change to our next SOI. You could use a sequential series. You can also just tell somebody to switch SOIs using your code word on the SOI, and then give them a version number to switch to using your authentication table or your numbers. So there's lots of different ways to implement your switches and implement how to start using an SOI. For this purpose, me and Jackson are on that same SOI. He's got a copy in front of him. He is working at his day job right now. Don't tell boss. But we're going to go ahead and contact him. So I am going to go ahead. On my SOI, I'm going to go ahead and just fill the role of first patrol leader, which is, the call sign for that is Whiskey 1 Actual. Whiskey 1 Actual. Actually, Whiskey Actual. I'm just going to go ahead and be Whiskey first patrol, first squad leader, Whiskey 1 Actual. So my call sign is Whiskey 1 Actual. 1. Write that down so I don't forget it. And then we're going to be calling TJ. We're just going to be using him as hire. So his call sign is going to be Zulu 4. Four. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. All right. So, first things first, when you're contacting somebody on radio comms, is you got to do your contact call. And when you want to do this, you go, this is me. All right. I hate when people do this wrong. People do this wrong all the time in my job. I say, your call sign. This is me, my call sign. So I'm going to say, Zulu 4 Actual. Zulu 4 Actual. This is Whiskey 1 Actual. How copy over. And then how copy at the end is just basically saying how do you receive my transmission? Did that come in? You can save that for another time, and I probably will. So my first one here, it is outbound. Here we go. And it's good before you use a radio, think about the message you're gonna send before you say it. And if you need to write it down, write it down. I've got a pad and paper here for exactly that, so I don't mess up any communications while I'm actually transmitting them. Here we go. Zulu 4, Zulu 4. This is Whiskey 1 Actual. Alright, so if I was using a radio, I would be sitting around waiting for a reply from TJ or my other station, but I'm using Signal today, so I'm going to go ahead. I've got his reply right here. Hopefully the audio is going to come through. I'm doing my best, guys. Here it is. So again, we just hailed him on the radio, and here is his reply.
This is Zulu 4, Whiskey 1 Actual. Go ahead, over.
Alright, he said, this is Zulu 4. He told me, Whiskey 1 Actual, to go ahead, and that says he is ready to receive my traffic, if I am ready to give it to him. But let's say I didn't like the tone of his voice, or I thought that he did not sound like my good friend TJ, and I want to make sure it's him. I'm going to go ahead and require him to authenticate, make sure he is who he says he is, and also make sure he's got a copy of the SOI and we're using it properly. So to make sure he is who he says he is, I'm going to tell Zulu 4 authenticate, and then I'm going to choose on my authentication table. Hopefully I can pull this up on a graphic or something for you. I go down to my authentication table and I'm going to go to my send side, and I'm going to send him a number. I'm going to send him 3, which means he should authenticate back alpha. That is straight down. We don't have any other authentication instructions on this table, so he should just know to authenticate straight down. Sometimes there are additional authentication instructions. You can write these in the margin and put them in the margin, like authenticate 2 to the left, or 1 to the right, or 3 to the right. But for this instance, we'll just be using a straight line authentication. So again, I'm going to think about what I'm going to say before I send it to him, and then I will transmit. Zulu 4, authenticate 3. I say again, authenticate 3. Alright, so that message is now out. I added in a little I say again. And then I just sent my message again. That's just for clarity's sake. You don't always have to do that. It was probably very overly redundant since I'm using great quality comms and Signal, but it's something you can do in the field. You say I say again. Don't say repeat when you're using tactical communications. It's a big no-no, because repeat is apparently it's in relation to fire missions and King of Battle guys that drop the bombs from the air. So repeat means repeat fire mission. So don't say repeat. If you want someone to send their traffic again, say again, or say I say again. I am saying my traffic again. So we've sent our challenge to TJ, and we will hope that he authenticates appropriately in response, and then we can start having a conversation.
Whiskey 1 Actual, Zulu 4, I send Alpha, over.
Alright, he sent Alpha. That is the appropriate response to our authentication challenge. So now we are pretty certain we're talking to TJ. Maybe his voice sounded a little different, but hey, I've got TJ on the line, or at least I've got somebody that's got our SOI. So we're going to go with it. It's what we've got to trust now. So at this point, I'm going to tell him, send some traffic. We've got a good authenticate, and I'm going to tell him, I'm going to send a message, and I'm going to send one in code. So I want to make sure that he's ready to receive an encoded message. So I'm going to give him a little warning message that says, hey, get ready to write this down. And that sounds something like this. Zulu 4, message follows. Prepare to copy. Over. So something I've been forgetting to do recently is you want to use over at the end of your message, and you want to use out when you're completely done with the conversation. Some radio etiquette I've heard before is you don't out your hire. So if hire's talking to you, you say over and let them finish the message with an out. But we're using Signal, so Jackson's doing a great job. Of course, he's prior service, so He's using his overs and his appropriately, but I'm going to try to. But you'll see I sent him a message to say I got a good copy from him, and I said message follows, and that is an appropriate message all by itself. It's a message follows tells him that my next message is important, so he should be ready to receive it. I also said prepare to copy. That is just another way, a redundant way of saying, hey, the next message is important, and this one may be long, so be ready to write it down. Got his reply right here. Let's see what he's got to say.
Whiskey 1 Actual, this is Zulu 4. Send it, over.
Send it. He's ready to receive it. At this point, he should have his pen and his paper in his hand because he knows if we're using radios that I'm going to start talking on that radio and he needs to start writing. So what I'm going to send him is I'm going to send him a little hypothetical that my patrol here is delayed at a danger area, and that we're requesting more time from him, okay? So we want to find on our table that we are delayed. That is under the orders and status in the green bar there, and that is snake. So I write down, first my whole message, I like to write it down, delayed, danger area, request time. And then below that, I'm gonna fill it out with delay is snake, danger area, okay, that's under my location table, go down to the very bottom, is Roku. So I write down Roku. And then a request is under my orders of status. It's a rooster. So I'll write down rooster. And then I'm requesting time, which is a resource in my orange resource table. I zoom on down to Visa and write that down. So the message I'm going to send him encoded is going to sound like this. Snake, Roku, rooster, Visa. So here we go. Zulu 4, this is Whiskey 1 Alpha Actual. Oops. I send snake, Roku, rooster, Visa, how copy, over. So on that one, I sent a little how copy on the end. That was a longer message, and the words and enunciation were very important. So I want him to read it back to me so I know he received it exactly as I sent it.
Whiskey 1 Actual, I copy. Snake, Roku, rooster, Visa, over.
All right, he's got a good copy. I'm going to go ahead and let him know he's got a good copy. Zulu 4, you have good copy, over. So now he is taking this time to start deciphering this message on his pen and paper. He's going in and finding what all those words mean.
Whiskey 1 Actual, this is Zulu 4, wait 1, over.
Okay, so he sent me a wait 1. Those are two different kinds of wait you can send, and they're both asking for a little bit more time. A wait 1 is basically I just need 1 minute or a few minutes. It's not exactly 1 minute, but I need a short period of time to figure out what I'm going to send next. You stay next to your radio. We're not done with our conversation. I've got more to talk about, but just give me a second. That's wait 1. He could send me a wait out. And that's like, hey, I'll get back to you when I figure it out, but I've got other things to do right now. So a wait out is, hey, it's going to be a while. So the difference in wait 1, short wait out, long wait.
Whiskey 1 Actual, this is Zulu 4, I send, rooster, dodge, over.
All right, I got Rooster Dodge. I'm going to let him know that I heard that just fine, and I will send that back to him, and then I will begin to decipher. I copy Rooster Dodge. Over. Rooster, I just sent that, so I just used that as I request, so I remember that from my my table over here in the green. Rooster is I request, so he's requesting something, and we got to find out where Dodge is. Now, this is handy when your SOI's table is a little bit organized. Mine, I know Dodge is a car brand, and I know that my car brands, because I remember seeing them in the lower left in the blue section, those are under my sit rep. So I just go down, I find Dodge real quick. There, it's lace. So he is requesting a lace report from me. So I've gotten down a little decipher. He wants LACE, which is an acronym for Liquids, Ammunition, Casualties, and Equipment. Now this is a little bit bigger of a report, I already sent him that wait 1 very poorly, so he knows that it's going to take me just a second. So now I want to configure my answer back to him. So what I'm going to do is just real quick on my piece of paper, write down liquids, annual, casualties, and equipment. I write down my 4 lines, and then I'm going to write down, right above them we've got green, yellow, red, and black, and those are going to be your typical responses to these standardized reports. So liquids, we're going to be green, so that's Ford. Ammunition, we'll just assume that we're red on ammo, so we'll give him a Jeep. Casualties lines, we've taken no casualties, so green on casualties, Ford. And equipment, we've sustained no losses on any of our equipment. We've got all our batteries charged and everything's good. So any special equipment relative missions all still good, relevant, and working. So we're going to send him a green, another Ford. So we now have a 4-line transmission. Now you want to be careful not to label these lines just obviously line Lima or line liquid over your communication. So he's already requested a lace report. He knows he's getting a 4-line report. I can just tell him line 1 or line 2 and then give him my answers, or I can just put a brief pause in between them. It'll make it a little bit harder for an enemy who doesn't have my SOI to decipher exactly what we're sending. So I'm going to go ahead and give him my reply. It has been just a minute, so I'll use his call sign in case anybody else is using this net to talk. Whiskey 1 actual, I send Ford. Jeep. Ford. Ford. How copy? Over. So again, I put a little pause right after each line. He should be able to interpret that that is the break. I could also set line 1, Ford, line 2, Jeep, line 3, Ford. But then I'm labeling all my lines and somebody will hear, oh, he stopped at 4 lines. What standardized report could my enemy be giving that's only 4 lines? That's probably a lace report. So
I copy Ford, Jute, Ford, Ford. Wait 1, over.
now this is good. It sounds like he said Jute on that second line, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in with the correction even though he told me to wait. I'm going to send my traffic again. Whiskey 1 actual, I send my traffic again. Jeep. I'm sorry, break. Alright, so I totaled my traffic there and I made a big mistake. So what I just said real fast was break. That should let him know that I messed up. It's okay, it happens sometimes. Just put that break in there and he knows that I'm coming back at him again with probably a better message. Whiskey 1 actual, my traffic follows. I send Ford, Jeep, Ford. How copy, over? Okay, guys, so mistakes happen when you're on communications and you're using these communications. Things happen, so being able to correct them quickly and appropriately is a good skill. And we're just here using open, clear communications, so imagine being in the field and how difficult this can be. Knowing how to fix your mistakes is just as important as knowing how to use any of this equipment and using these systems in the first place. So, a little embarrassing that I did that, but I guess I'm glad it happened.
Good copy. I copy Ford, Jeep, Ford. Over.
Okay, we've got a good copy from him now. He copies Ford, Jeep, Ford. I could send him affirmative or something else, but he's sending more traffic right now. Let's listen to what he's got to say.
Whiskey 1 actual, copy all, break.
Alright, he's copied all, and he broke in his transmission, which means he's going to talk again.
Charlie Mike at this time, over.
Charlie Mike. That is just a brief little continue mission. That's just slang terms. So he didn't send that encrypted. That's okay. If he did want to send that encrypted, he could have. It's very simple. He would have gone over to his orders and status and found continue right there. So continue is mouse. And then continue mission. I think you just send continue, and I would probably get the drift. So I'm gonna say I copy continue the mission, and then I'm gonna go ahead and say no further traffic because he is the higher, and I'm gonna make sure he doesn't have anything else to say to me. Whiskey One Actual, I copy Charlie Mike. I copy Charlie Mike. No further traffic at this time. Over. So I said I don't have anything else to talk to him about, and that's kind of opening the end of the conversation for him to say, oh, I don't have anything else to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and out you at this time, and I'll send you with a blah, blah, blah. I'm out, and this conversation is now over.
Whiskey 1 Actual, no further traffic. Zulu 4 out.
Oh, he nerfed our call signs there. Oh no, I nerfed our call signs. I nerfed our call signs earlier. Well, nobody's perfect. Alright guys, that was a real basic conversation using SOI or CEO&I encrypted communications, military grade encrypted communications for anybody, and you can use them over tin cans in a string or your radios. You can use them on Signal, you can use them on text-based programs, IRC, anything like that. This is old school encryption. This is codebook stuff. I know it's not big and sexy, but this stuff works. When you get down to it, guys, technology is so advanced these days that if you don't have what's on the cutting edge, you're oftentimes better off going backwards in technology than trying to catch up with the forwards. So this stuff works really well. Learn it, practice it, make a couple of your own SOIs. I'm going to try, I'm not a techno wizard, but I'm going to try and get this file in a public Google Drive so anyone can view it, download it, and then edit it and change it however they may want to for their specific team or your group of guys or whoever you hang out with or your family for emergency purposes, whatever. So make a couple copies, label them different versions, put times into effect. If you actually have like a training mission or a real mission that you have to do, you can set your times for your known mission times so you can have SOIs prepared and ready to go. I hope this was awesome learning for you guys. I found this stuff kind of difficult to find on the internet, so I learned this 10 years ago at One Shepherd. So shout out to those guys. They're still doing some stuff in a couple different locations. Stay sharp, boys. Thank you.